Luke's only chance is a stake in the monster's jaw.
The Force is back.
Welcome to the Star Wars Collectors Archive podcast, hosted by Skye Payne, Fudd, and Stephen B. Danley. Join Skye and Steve as they discuss the only toy based entirely on the emotion of grief, the Rancor Keeper. Ron joins to teach about rough clay sculpts, Palitoy ads, Dixie Cups, and Yupis. Plus, quite a bit of bear discussion on this month's Chive Cast. Wampa Wampa.
Welcome to Chive Cast 120. Whoa.
120. It's no longer surprising, Steve, that we have all these episodes keep coming. I've been enjoying. We've been very kind of trim and lean. In these episodes.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not like there isn't stuff to report on. You know, there've been big auctions and things like that. But I don't know. I've actually just enjoyed. It's been easier to edit, but also I think it's been easier to listen to, and that's the kind of hope that we're not getting too gargan largan.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about the Rancor Keeper, and I'm excited to talk about it with Ron. What's the big joke with Ron and the Rancor Keeper, Steve?
Well, I mean, there's a few. I mean, he has probably, you know, we're going to talk about this, but this incredible run of Rancor Keeper stuff, but he also, the other thing that comes to mind is the great poster for an event at the archive party that was the Ron's Rancor Keeper rag toss.
Yes.
That was a game. I think Mike Cooper made that poster, didn't he?
Yes. So John Peck designed the game.
Yes.
Right? And John Peck was a great... and we've... Just so you know, if you're curious about what's happening with the archive party, so are we. We don't quite know what's going on. We can promise you this. Either there will be a party or there won't be. And we can further promise you that the party, if it does happen, we can't promise anything beyond that if it does. So we're still working. But back in the good old days, in the pre-Vidi days, So John designed this game where you would throw a rag on top of Rancor Keeper's head.
Yes.
And so that's playing off the joke that Ron is a focus collector. Because if you've been listening to the show, you know that Ron Salvatore, who will be joining us presently, is not a focus collector. He doesn't say that he doesn't like focus collectors, but he talks, acts, speaks, thinks, and doesn't like focus collectors.
The mere concept is not appealing to him.
You know, he doesn't speak in a sort of British way, but I could imagine him saying, "I don't despise focus collectors, but I find their ethos to be an anathema." Like that's sort of what he's saying. He finds our ethos to be an anathema, Steve.
That's right.
And so it's funny that he happens to have probably one of the top 2 or 3 character focuses in the world for Rancor Keeper. Well, maybe not that high, but I mean certainly a top 10 focus collection of a character, and he would never call it that ever in a million years. So that'll be fun. We'll go through his collection, and what we'll do is we'll put that joke to bed. Why don't we just blow Ron's mind and not make that joke even once?
I think we have to just completely stay silent on that and just respect his wishes.
Yes, and just go through the figure as it because there's a couple different ways of looking at these damn toys that we stare at and think about. Either it's a character or it's a toy. And as a toy, Ron will be able to take us through a lot of the stages of collecting.
Yes, that sums it up right there.
Now, here's a question: is the Rancor Keeper the greatest failure in the Kenner line?
To me, I feel like he's the most talked about failure. I think if anyone goes to a description of the lamest figure or the worst, I feel like the Rancor Keeper is always on the top of that list or near the top. But
I think the reason why he has to be is if he were a pack-in figure, right, with the Rancor, that would be great.
Right.
Because if you have a Rancor and you don't have a Rancor Keeper, you don't care. If you have a Rancor and you have a Rancor Keeper, you're like, you know what? That's cool. You know, he has a little friend there. But if you, like most people, have a Rancor Keeper and not a Rancor, it's a toy of want. It's a toy of lacking. I mean, you can't do anything with it.
Except cry.
Except cry. And that's The one thing I will
That's
say.
what I did.
So you also had a Rancor keeper, Steve?
Oh yeah. I had the Rancor keeper. I probably had a couple of them because, there were plenty of them around. But yeah, it's just another famously lame figure that I'm just incredibly fond of. But yeah, I always wanted a Rancor. I never had one. I had the Rancor keeper, so I would just use my imagination with Jabba's little base that, I just throw guys in there and just that was it. Like that was the end.
Right.
Yeah.
Now
So,
I will say, that there are things that are great about the Rancor keeper.
oh yeah.
I mean, as a character, it's I think the only character in cinema that is exclusively defined by its grief. Like
Yes.
the only okay, so there is I rewatched the scene today.
Okay.
Actually,
yeah.
I went on YouTube. There are like so many YouTubers talking about Star Wars stuff, Steve. It's crazy.
Oh boy.
And he was breaking down the Rancor keeper. And so there is one scene where Luke tries to break out, and like the Rancor keeper and his buddy, the Nikto buddy, or Klaatu?
Yeah.
Is it Nikto?
I
or
think
Klaatu?
I think it's a Klaatu.
And
Yeah.
his Klaatu buddy are like playing cards or doing something else. Which, first of all, if you're a Rancor keeper, okay, how many people get fed to the Rancor? Does it happen so often that if it happens, you don't even pay attention? It's like you live at the bottom of a garbage chute and you hear the plastic bag go tumbling down the chute. Well, he's just like, oh yeah, we're just going to hang out here. We're not going to watch a Jedi fight a giant monster next door. And so, they run up and they kind of try to scare him away from the door, which
Yeah.
which I think the bars do the job.
Yeah.
I don't think that a couple of morbidly obese weirdos sitting in a room playing cards would stop a Jedi Knight. Still, but really, he is known for crying. He's known for looking. He's known for his grief, and for that, I think we need to appreciate not only the character but also the sculptor, because the sculptor made the Rancor keeper with that frown.
Yes.
he looks sad.
He really does. That the face, it perfectly captures the Kennerized version of that character. That doesn't always happen. It doesn't happen often, really. I feel like this is one of those instances where it really, really does.
And
Yeah.
the card back art is like, Steve, do you know I don't know. Do you know the origin of this card back art?
The image itself.
Yeah. Is it
feel
just
like
like a studio still?
I think so, and then
Yeah.
they just kind of
Added some
they
blue
kind
crap in the back.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like on the Tri-Logo card you get a better sense of what the original studio shot looked like, but I think it's just basically this guy standing there for his just a reference photo.
Yeah, and
yeah.
because in that picture he looks grumpy but not sad.
Right.
And I really do think that the sculptor managed to get this through. There is another thing where I was looking. So we're not a political show, Steve, but we did recently have a president who had a very particular posture when he would speak at news conferences. So he would do this thing where he would lean way forward. I'm talking about President Donald J. Trump.
Oh,
The J's for
man.
genius. He would lean way out, and if you look at the Rancor keeper, he has very much that kind of. I don't know if it's like a displacement of weight. If you have a particularly large gut, my gut's been getting a little bit bigger than I'd like it to be lately. So maybe I'll be able to tell you if you get any more of this COVID mess going. Stop eating my goddamn butter chips at 2:00 in the morning. But in case you forget, butter chips is when you take tortilla chips and you dip them directly into butter and you eat them at 2:00 in the morning when you have insomnia. That's
the latter two parts of that are key to the butter chips.
Yes.
Like that, you need the complete scenario
do.
for them to be butter
You
chips.
do. Like when you've been, like cooped up in your house and you have a sort of howling sense of existential dread. Nothing feeds and tampers that down better than butter chips. So
I'm gonna have to try this, or maybe I shouldn't. I gotta figure out something else. But yeah.
So it seems like the Rancor keeper's been hitting the butter chips, but there is a kind of funny thing with his position. But I'm sure we'll be talking about the sculpt when we talk to Ron.
Yeah.
Steve, you got a beautiful outline, but
I tried to keep it mysterious, and it's very vague. But yeah.
I want to start off by talking about something totally different.
Okay. Yeah.
Advertisements, Steve.
Okay. Just generally, Star
Okay.
Wars, new Star Wars. Where are you going?
So I was trying to find more material about the Rancor Keeper.
Yeah.
And I learned something that it's not that I didn't know it, okay? So Chris Jorbilius, when he hears this episode a couple of years down the line, he's a little bit backlogged. He's going to go, oh man, you didn't know that? Kenner and Palitoy use the same imagery in their advertisements. Okay?
Right.
So the advertisement for the Rancor, and I've said this before, I almost converted to Judaism to get a Rancor. My friend Jeff Levy, I was at his Hanukkah party. I didn't know what Judaism was, and I didn't know what Hanukkah was, but I did know that Jeff Levy got a Rancor. And I was very interested in whatever Hanukkah is because I thought that would mean I would get a Rancor.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah.
And then many years later, I would finally get my first ever Rancor when Isaac Lev and Will Grief were making a find in the Rochester area, and they got a loose Rancor. And I played with it at the Kinko's, at the FedEx office while they were shipping everything up.
I remember hearing about this.
I kept on feeding like paper clips inside of its mouth and rubber bands.
Oh man.
So anyways, going back to this Rancor commercial. So there's a beautiful Rancor commercial, and what I discovered is you can learn a lot about the difference between American public and what it expects, and European public and what it expects. Now, I almost wanted to wait for Ron here because, it's kind of a little bit about also like, European filmmaking versus American filmmaking. But I know he would give me one of these, I don't know, Skies. So, or should we wait for Ron? What do you think?
Well, I don't know. When you said that last bit, like, that would be his immediate reaction, probably. we can give a second visit to it once he's on it, and we can just gauge the interest. Okay. But I don't know. Let's go for it. Go for it now.
So this is what's fascinating. If you just look at the footage has like a gate with a Rancor Keeper and a Gamorrean guard, which, by the way, brown and green is the color of fat. I don't know why that is. Like, did you also kind of think that maybe the Rancor Keeper is just a Gamorrean guard, just like without makeup?
They definitely were connected, like in terms of, there was something there.
There's something there. So they're like looking through this gate, and these kids are playing with a Rancor, and it's at the bottom of this kind of like sandy pit, and Luke falls in, and then like Luke like puts a little stick inside the Rancor's mouth.
Oh man, that was okay. When I did finally get a Rancor, I'm sure any kid that had one of these was finding twigs that would fit just right.
Now, in the American version, there's an ending, and in the British version, there's not. In the American version, the Rancor is defeated. The Rancor Keeper and the Gamorrean guard rush in to see how it is, and then Luke runs out with the Rancor Keeper holding the Rancor holding the Rancor Keeper and the Gamorrean in its hands as though he's about to eat it.
The Rancor monster's hungry again. Let's feed him. Don't do it.
Luke Skywalker, Gamorrean Guard, new Rancor Monster and Rancor Keeper action figures, each sold separately.
You'll regret this. Wait till he gets his claws into a Jedi Knight. Whoa, some jaws. This is my only chance. He's wounded. We better get in there. You'll never get out alive, Gamorrean Guard.
New Rancor Monster, action figures, each sold separately, from Kenner's Star Wars Return of the Jedi collection.
The British version ends open-ended. With the announcer saying, will he succeed or fall victim? Only you can decide with Star Wars toys.
Return of the Jedi. The Rancor monster has trapped Luke Skywalker. Can he escape the Rancor's claws as the Rancor Keeper and Gamorrean Guard look on? Luke's only chance is a stake in the monster's jaw. Will he succeed or fall victim? Only you can decide with Star Wars toys.
So, the term happy ending in French, do you know how you say happy ending in French?
No.
Happy ending. They have to say it in English because they think it's so beneath them to think that movies have to end with a happy ending. And even if you go to the dialogue, okay, so the dialogue in the American version, I'll play these sort of back to back, I'll edit them in. The American version starts off, "Rawr! The Rancor monster is hungry again." And then Rancor Keeper has his only line of dialogue in anywhere.
Any media.
"Let's feed him." Luke says, "Don't do it. You'll regret this." And then there's a close-up on the Gamorrean guard who says, "Wait till he gets his claws into a Jedi Knight." Luke says, very much in a Spider-Man style dialogue, Whoa, some jaws! This is my only chance. And he puts the stick in his mouth. And then the Gamorrean guard says, he's wounded. And then the Rancor keeper says, we better get in there. At which point Luke says, you'll never get out alive, Gamorrean guard. Now, that's all the dialogue from the kids. The British version only has dialogue from this amazing announcer.
Their narrator.
See if you can figure out what is my favorite line from this. Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi. The Rancor. God damn, I went Australian again.
Sorry.
Okay, James. Okay,
you tend to go that way.
Okay. How do I say things with a British accent? How do I kick myself in a British accent? Okay. The Rancor monster has tracked Luke Skywalker. Can he escape the Rancor's claws? The Rancor keeper and Gamorrean guard look on. Luke's only chance is a stake in the monster. It's Australian again. God damn it, Steve. Luke's only chance is a stake in the monster's jaw. Will he succeed or fall victim? Only you can decide with Star Wars toys, mate. So it's that line. Luke's only chance is a stake in the monster's jaw.
Yeah, that's great.
It's just beautiful.
Good.
So, anyways, there's a little bit of Skyeism. I said we were staying lean and mean. We're going to be as lean and mean as the Rancor keeper.
Exactly. Yeah.
But isn't that kind of a cool thing? Like the difference in just what the audience is. Us American kids need to have the kids talking. They need to participate, and the good guy always has to win.
It's British all spelled
version,
out.
It's like just some voice of God. Winston Churchill. Luke's chances are stake in the monster's jaw.
Well, that was a little more Bane. But,
everything is Bane.
Yeah, I feel like the narrator for the Palitoy commercials, I don't know if it actually is Paul Frees, but it's someone who really reminds me of him. I haven't listened to him in a long time, but yeah, that voice it's great. It's something that we were definitely lacking here.
Yeah, because the General Kenner guy is just a little bit bland.
Yeah.
And so who is the other guy? Like the Rancor keeper, if you watch that scene, it's weird because the Rancor keeper just loses his mind and he just starts crying. And the other guy catches Luke. And also, hey Luke, you just murdered a gigantic monster.
Yeah.
And he's caught, but not even by like just some random Klaatu.
Yeah. Okay.
How does he let himself get caught?
So it's funny you're bringing this up. It fits into something I was gonna bring up from the script, which is the way this scene is described, which just makes me laugh. So I don't know if you want to hear that.
Let's go behind the Steve. Let's go behind the Steve.
Okay. All right. We'll start with this little screenplay description because it's talking about these two characters. Okay. So this is how it's described. A startled gasp is heard from the stunned court. There's consternation at this turn of events. Heads look to Jabba, who's actually turning red with anger. The beast breathes its last. Leia cannot suppress her joy. The Rancor keepers have come into the cage and are examining their dead beast. One of them breaks down and weeps. The other glares menacingly at Luke, who is unworried. Several guards rush into the holding tunnel and take Luke away. The weeping Rancor keeper is consoled and led away. So I just love this. Wow. This idea of the Klaatu guard just looking at Luke like, you effing a-hole. Like, he is this menacing glare at Luke, who is unworried. It's just like, and he's a supportive friend. And he's like looking at him like, I can't believe you did that. Like, it's just,
Man, I'm going to be hearing about this for like weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy doesn't have a name. He's just a Rancor keeper. And you don't see him keep a Rancor. How do you even keep a Rancor?
Yeah, I don't know. But and some other things that kind of went into this scene. So there's a storyboard for it that shows what looks like either two Niktos or Klaatus or Gamorrean guards kind of rushing in. There's no human Rancor keepers in the original sketch, but they did do some character sketches of him, and one of them shows even more skin. It's really just this large man in a diaper, with a mustache, which I really love. They put some pants on him, which is probably for the best. But yeah, I just, I don't know. It's one of those things where they put a lot into this character, and there's this great quote from George Lucas that kind of describes him, and I thought I'd share that too.
Yes, let's hear it.
This gets to the whole, I think, the crux of everything. Here's George. I like the idea that everyone loves someone. and even the worst, most horrible monster you can imagine was loved by his keeper. And the Rancor probably loved his keeper. That's it. That's something he said.
I love it when you talk about Star Wars. That was a solid George Lucas, but it got a little Kermit at the end.
It did,
I thought it'd be nice if everybody would love somebody.
There's too much Muppets going on around here lately. I think that's what happened. I go Kermit, you go Australian. I think those are our
yeah. I mean, that does seem to be Lucas's idea with this, or with the maker's idea. I mean, really, that everybody loves somebody. It is a great lesson in compassion. It is a note. The random YouTube video that I found quoted Roger Ebert, who actually really soloed out this scene. Saying this is an example of why it's such a great movie. And it is an interesting movie because we have this, and then we also have the famous scene of the dead Ewok and the grieving Ewok. There is a fair amount of grief in this movie. And
there is.
There's not that much loss, but there's a lot of grief, because that little Ewok came out of nowhere, and you certainly don't want the Rancor to live.
Right,
At some point, Steve, we're going to have to do the Book of Boba Fett winners and losers.
Yes.
And, certainly, I would say the Rancor Keeper is a big loser.
So far.
No Rancor, no Keeper. Skye here on a Thursday. Okay, so we recorded this on the Tuesday before Episode 3 of Book of Boba Fett came out. So we didn't know that there would be a Rancor in the next episode, and I certainly didn't know that there'd be a new Rancor Keeper, Danny Trejo. There's no reason that the old Rancor Keeper shouldn't have stayed alive. He definitely lost again. And now we care about Rancors. What's up with that? And for the record, I liked that episode. So if you don't like it, that's cool too. Unless, they're so slavish to the old stuff, maybe we'll see the Rancor Keeper come back. Yeah.
All right. Well, I had one last little bit of behind-the-scenes trivia, which I found really fascinating. I don't know if you know who Ernie Faselius is. Do you happen to know who that is? Okay. So he's the guy who made Hardware Wars back in the 70s, the parody that became really famous and all that. But what I didn't know is that the actor who plays the Rancor Keeper, he's not the one doing the weeping. So he's pantomiming weeping. It's this British actor named Paul Brook. But the guy who's actually sobbing, the one that we all hear, is this guy Ernie Faselius, who I guess Ben Burt had brought him in to do a bunch of weird voices and voice performances in some of the movies. And so it's this guy who made Hardware Wars that's the crying Rancor Keeper. That's his voice.
Wow.
And I guess he's really bitter about Star Wars now. He's not so happy about it, but he did other weird voices back in the day. So he was that really scary troll from Ernest Scared Stupid.
Oh wow.
He was the Martians from Mars Attacks. So he's got this weird kind of career as a Yes, that's him. That is the Rancor.
No offense, Steve. You should lead with that as opposed to Ernest Scared Stupid. Ernest Scared Stupid is a solid movie. I drink my Miak every day, but it's wow. That's pretty wild. That's the same voice.
Guy. Yeah, same voice. And he also co-wrote the original Laptinek Rebo Band song with John Williams and John Williams' son. So he's got this huge imprint on Star Wars, and he apparently hates it. He hates Star Wars.
And I've never seen Hardware Wars.
I watched it for the first time. Really, I've seen bits of it over the years, but I think a few years ago, our friend up in Oakland, Trevor Wenzel, he had a print of it that he brought into our work where you guys came by, and we actually watched it all together. And it's it's funny, but it's not. I don't know. I didn't see. I feel like it's bigger than it is. It's one of those things that has this reputation, and it was really popular. It made decent money. I don't think Ernie made any money. That's probably another reason why he was pretty bitter about it. But yeah, it's just one of those things that I never would have expected to learn that while looking up stuff about the Rancor Keeper.
Wow. Skye, I just discovered the most exciting thing. Ernie Faselius was also the voice of Poggle the Lesser. the coolest sound in all of the prequel series. If you ever text me, that's my text tone. Oh, like, man, that dude's awesome. It's crazy. It's also a generational thing, I think. I think, people 5 years older than me or 47 years older than you who are like around in 78, whereas by the time I was that age, like I already had Spaceballs to be disappointed in. Well, it is time to call Ron.
Do you have a poem, though?
I do have a poem.
But do you need more of an audience? Do you need Ron to hear the poem?
No. Steve, we've goofed around with the format a lot. We've never had anyone else on for the Skye-Ku.
Yeah, that's true.
You may not know this. I do get shy sometimes. So I'm a little bit shy about that.
I'm your initial test audience for your...
Okay. This one's pretty straightforward. For some reason, the first line is cracking me up. It's not that funny. It's just cracking me up. I'll see how I can do. Shirtless, caring man. I'm sorry.
No, that's.
I just find that to be an amusing way to describe.
Even if you hadn't cracked up, I would have cracked up right there. So it's okay.
It's sort of like it's like someone who doesn't speak English who's trying to describe somebody like, he is a shirtless, caring man. Okay. Shirtless, caring man. How do you keep a monster? Drowning frowns of grief.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was a roller coaster there.
Yes, it started funny and ended with drowning frowns of grief.
Yeah. Which is also funny.
Yes, it is. All right, well, let's get that all out of the way, Steve. So we're going to call the world's biggest focus collector, and and it's so funny. He doesn't like focus collecting, and we are going to have to get his opinion on the Rancor Keeper and see what he has to say.
Obviously, yes. Yeah.
All right, now I'm going to do the thing where I am... Hey, Ron.
Hey, Ron.
What's going on? How are you guys doing?
So,
all right.
If we asked you for a $10,000 question, if we were the station that pays, what is the Rancor Keeper's name in universe? You have to spell it correctly. What would you say,
Ron? It's Malakili.
Ooh, Malakili. Can you spell that, Ron?
Malakili.
Oh, is that right, Steve?
Is that correct?
That sounds right. I'm getting a little bit Mississippi here with the MISS.
Malakili. Is he Hawaiian?
I think that's right.
Yeah, I think that's
right. You guys owe me at least $10,000 now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they only know that because I just remember somehow when that figure came out, that was like at the start of the ridiculous Power of the Force 2 use of like the card game or the Decipher card game, like in universe names. And I just remember John Peck constantly making fun of, our friend John Peck constantly making fun of the Rancor Keeper and calling him Malakili. So that's why I remember it.
Well, I mean, we almost...
I also remember that Yak Face is like Salty Maru or something like that.
You did get it right, Ron, and it is actually all in the Hawaiian alphabet. So I think that the Hawaiian... I think that the Rancor Keeper comes from Space Hawaii. What do you guys think?
Yeah. I like that. He goes, after the Rancor is dead, he just retreats back to that planet from Rogue One and just whatever's left of it and just sits on the beach.
He looks more Samoan, to be honest. Like, he's a Samoan-looking dude.
He doesn't wear a shirt, so he's on the beach all the time,
Yeah.
I could see him wearing a little lei, He's definitely been to a couple luau's.
Has the Rancor Keeper ever been brought back, like in, I don't know, Book of Boba Fett or...
Well, that's what we were calling
you, or any of these other things.
No, he's.
I don't.
There's never.
No.
Been, not only that, Ron. We're gonna have to spoil Chapter 2 of Book of Boba Fett for you. But they open up the.
I actually saw it.
What?
Wow.
Why are you watching Star Wars, Ron? Are you okay?
A friend of ours gave me their password for Disney, so I watched it.
Wow.
Was it just so that they could call you and complain?
Too overwhelming.
Wow, that means you can also watch Hawkeye and a whole bunch of other unwatchable stuff. That's great.
That probably won't be happening, but I did see the Book of Boba Fett, especially since I had people here at New Year's, and almost everybody, all big Star Wars nerds, all they did was complain about it. So I was like, I need to see this now.
Well, yeah, that's at least they're not calling and texting you directly with their complaints.
Yeah.
So you could get it all. The session is one session.
No, it was just in person complaints about the show.
Well,
mostly centering around Boba Fett being a wuss.
Yeah, it's weird how
it is weird.
The desire for Boba Fett. It's the greatest thing the show's done so far is making sure that he's not super badass. I mean,
maybe.
I mean, Lucas did his best. It's like, how about I make him a little whining kid? And everyone's like, nah, it still doesn't do it. And so now they've got all the coolest people who everybody loves to make Star Wars, and they're still making Boba Fett into a real person. But it's okay. We don't need to talk about Boba Fett. We need to talk about Malakili, which is the Hawaiian way of saying Merry Christmas. So what are your thoughts on the Rancor Keeper, Ron?
Malakili.
Rancor Keeper. I don't know. It's kind of one of the worst figures in the line, right? I think he'd probably, if you asked people, he took a poll, he'd probably be close to the top of one of the worst figures.
What do you think makes him bad?
I don't think it's because it's a bad... I think it's the character. I don't really think that... He shows up for like 2 seconds. He's not an alien. He's just like a fat guy. And he's kind of just like a... I don't know. I mean, you buy a Rancor Keeper because you bought the Rancor toy, which was cool. I don't know what else you'd really do with him. I guess you put him in your Jabba diorama, but he's just kind of... There's not much there. I mean, he's just a fat guy. If he was a fat alien like the Gamorrean Guard, it would be somewhat better.
Right.
But he's not, right? So yeah, I don't know. I mean, General Madine, not that interesting. Viewing pilot, sorry, Steve, but he at least is a pilot and he has like a helmet and everything. The Rancor Keeper is just like a dude. Like, he's just like this one guy in Jabba's palace. He's just like a dude. He's not an alien. Like, not intriguing from a visual perspective. He looks kind of like King Kong Bundy or something like that. And he's got a hood. As a figure, I don't know. I mean, even as a figure, I don't know if it's that good. I mean, at least it has the 2 accessories, but that's about all it has going for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Ron, we sort of wanted to have you on here. Obviously, you're a great cinephile. I do think we could, if we rethink of Return of the Jedi as a movie about grief, then Rancor Keeper is a very interesting figure, and I could see him, like his life after this. I could imagine it being some kind of like dreary Scandinavian affair, kind of a realist movie about grief.
Like a Lars von Trier movie about missing the Rancor.
Or take a little darker, go like Hanukkah or something like that.
You make a joke about that, but I don't know this, but I almost guarantee you there's like some comic book or novel or something that details what the Rancor Keeper did after the Rancor died.
I'm sure there is. I there has to be.
You consult the Wikipedia and find out, but I'm sure that's out there. So it seems like too much of a low-hanging fruit for it not to have been picked at some point.
No, he is kind of tough. He has these kind of like studded armlets. I don't know what we call them. They're not quite bracelets because they're on his. I guess you'd call them biceps. So he does have kind of a tough guy look. Would it be better or worse if he had a shirt?
Yeah. I think it'd be worse. I think the one cool thing about it is that he's just like a fat, half-naked guy, right?
Yeah.
He's got kind of like the man boobs, and then the sculptor put the little like ridges in his chest there, like his breast area. So
yeah.
Some nice realism. And
it's the most anatomically correct figure.
His being like an overweight, half-naked guy, if you're a kid or whatever, it's just kind of like, oh gosh, just a fat guy. But there is kind of like, that does make it kind of interesting. It's like everybody remembers the Rancor Keeper. Like, oh yeah, I remember that. He's just like a fat guy in hairy underwear. So I think it would be worse if he had a shirt. Like, that would just kind of not be as fun.
I think realistically,
I mean, it is a fun figure, right? It's
Yeah.
a fun figure from like a conceptual standpoint because it's just how many funny figures? Like it's one of the funniest figures in the line because everybody who collects Star Wars is like, oh yeah, the Rancor Keeper. Even people who just remember it as a kid, like, oh, that was just like the fat guy, right? So there's a fun aspect to that, I guess.
And there is a kind of, getting more fancy here, kind of a memento mori thing to this too, where a good portion of kids who played with this toy would end up looking like him by around this time. So he would be pretty funny if like on his action figure it just says, "What I am, you will become. What you are, I once was." You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is true. I mean, I don't want to diss anybody or cast aspersions on anyone, but our cohort, which is the vintage toy collecting cohort, there is a fair number of overweight bald guys, and he is kind of like a mascot in that respect.
And there's a dignity to him, and I definitely agree when it comes to the sculpt, the sternum notes. I mean, that really is that is an obsessive level of realism. And
it is,
and I mean, because I guess sometimes Ron and I have gone on, Steve, and you've listened to us talk about Northern Renaissance sculpture, but this is maybe closer to like Roman sculpture, like around the 1st century where they got really realist and it no longer was it idealized and just this really does feel like Ron said, it's just a man. It's just
a man.
It's just a man. That's all this is. Why did you get me this man toy? I don't want a man. I want to fantasize. I want to play.
Yeah, I mean, it would be fun, though, to sit around the table when Kenner was just kind of tossing out concepts. The Rancor Keeper being one of them. Like, I mean, yeah. I'm sure because they made a Rancor toy, it was kind of like, well, there's some cross-sell potential there.
Yeah, like I feel like in the Kenner universe, he would be married to Gargan. Like they feel like they complement each other, but you don't have the Rancor equivalent to pair with Gargan. So I think that's
The thing is that
like when Hasbro tried to sell their Black Series Rancor, did they package it with a Rancor Keeper? I wasn't paying close
I'm glad you asked this question, Ron. I did some asking around because I realized we'd be talking about this. So I'll save my other stupid point. So if you don't know, it's currently January 2022. And at the end of last year, Hasbro was going to release a deluxe, gigantic Rancor. And they had a list of all these what are called stretch goals, where like if enough people invested, I think it was like $600. Is that right, Steve?
God, I don't know. I guess I feel like the barge was like 500 or something.
Okay,
so
maybe it was that, but like it's so big that you would need a house that is too big to have. Like that's the only way you could possibly play the toys. If you had a house that was so big it like echoed of loneliness. You know what I mean?
Like it wouldn't fit through your bedroom door. Like to go out, you wouldn't be able to move it around in the house. You'd need
But instead of offering new toys, because in order to do a tooling, as Ron will tell you and any toy person will tell you, I think it costs something around $100,000 to like make a new toy. So because they didn't make the Rancor Keeper a stretch goal, because they didn't offer a Rancor Keeper, that's one of the reasons, most likely, why not enough people backed it. Now, okay, they say it's because of ULA, but we all know that actually what people want is a 6-inch update of the Rancor Keeper. So it didn't happen. There will be no Black Series Rancor. It's all over because we didn't support it, guys. None of the three of us supported it, did we?
No.
I would rather go to the dentist than support that. Or just other things I'd rather do. I'd rather wait in line at Celebration to see a presentation about Rogue One than back the Rancor.
Well, now that you have a Disney Plus thing, you're gonna get psyched for the Cassian Andor solo show. That'll be
oh gosh,
that'll be your thing. It's gonna be like
I'll end up watching it because the curiosity will get the best of me, and I'll have to watch.
Once the doors open, you'll be.
Well, I mean, Ron.
Although I just can't think of a less interesting character than Cassian Andor, but I guess that's beside the point.
But again, if we talk about world cinema, Ron, if I told you at one point, oh yeah, the guy from Y Tu Mama Tambien is going
Right,
to be the
right.
star of a Star Wars TV show in 2022. I would be less surprised by flying cars, you know?
Yeah, well, I guess.
But
Good for him.
Here's the other problem with a Rancor Keeper. How do you play with a Rancor Keeper, even if you have a Rancor?
Yeah, you feed him, I guess. That's about all I can think of.
Like the Rancor, the play value of the Rancor is that it eats everything. You know, I've told
Right.
this story before, but when I was a kid, and I was a lonely kid, I would sit alone in my bed with a big bag of Doritos, and I would say each Dorito was a Star Destroyer, and I was the Rancor, and I would eat all the Star Destroyers as the Rancor. There's nothing sad about that. It's just a nice memory. And like that's what the Rancor does. It just eats. So so the Gamorrean Guard you play with the Rancor. Luke Skywalker you play with the Rancor. But a Gamorrean Guard, I mean a Rancor Keeper, he just stands there.
Yeah, he gives them gentle pets and just gives them some food.
What an
Yeah, no, he doesn't do anything. I think that's the main problem with him. I don't know. Did you guys go back and review old Kenner commercials? I wonder if there was a Kenner commercial that had the Rancor Keeper in it, and what kind of play pattern they tried to establish.
Right. Yes.
You fell right into my trap, Ron.
That was your Java laugh right there.
I before you came on, because I knew you'd poo-poo this idea and you wouldn't walk into the trap, but I guess you did. Not only is there a Rancor commercial with a Rancor Keeper, but you just missed my dissection of the Palitoy version and the American version and what that can tell us about continental cinema, European cinema versus American cinema. So, yes, there is a Rancor Keeper in the Rancor commercial, and he does have a line, which is "Let's feed him." That's his line in the American commercial.
Let's feed him.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's what he do. He does keep the Rancor, so I guess he's responsible for the feeding.
But spoiler, and this is going to be, there's going to be a Rancor Keeper show on Disney Plus as well, coming 2023. Michael Chiklis is playing him. At the end of the commercial, the Rancor is eating the Rancor Keeper. So
yeah, he turns on his keeper. Yeah.
That doesn't seem right for some reason. It seems it's really heartless of the Rancor. I mean, after this man, I guess it's in an alternate universe where he cried when the Rancor died, but clearly the feelings are not mutual there between the Rancor and the Rancor Keeper.
It's a Siegfried and Roy situation. Okay, well, we did invite you on just to talk nonsense about the Rancor Keeper, but we did really want to talk about, I think there's a lot of different ways to understand your collection, Ron. And the way that I prefer is a lot more of the kind of the weird stuff, and I love your completion and all that stuff. But if someone really wanted to just say, how were Star Wars toys made, probably the best way to do that in your collection would be just to focus on the Rancor Keeper. Would you agree to that, Ron? Just from a toy
I don't know. I had a few runs. Full disclosure, I don't have the sculpts anymore. I had actually did a deal a little while ago where I had to give up the sculpts, the wax sculpts of the Rancor Keeper. But that one and Low Gray, I guess, are the two that I had the most stages of, right? Where you could kind of go through them and see how the figures were made, right? So, yeah.
And more like, what survived from the Rancor Keeper? I guess that's the question. Like I've been thinking is like what remained, what survived the process.
I think with Low Gray, I think all the wax stuff survived, including the bag, the staff, the figure, right, and the hat or the whatever you call that thing,
headdress thing. Yeah.
With the Rancor, everything except the little doohickey, his little stick, right? So the full wax figure, the sculpt for the cowl, and then I guess that's it. Plus the clay leg, which I still have, right? So the clay leg is the only, as far as I know, that's the only figure rough sculpt piece that's out there. Unless there's one that I'm not aware of.
Wax and clay sculpts?
Well, before the clay sculpt is kind of the first rough, right? And then they'll rough it out in clay usually, and then they'll make a silicon mold probably of that clay sculpt, pour wax into it, and then do the fine detailing work for the wax sculpt. So the clay sculpt comes first in most cases. And I think there's actually, I want to say there's Ewoks. I think Chris Fawcett might have Chief Chirpa a rough clay. But I think the Rancor Keeper leg is the only part from a movie line figure that I'm aware of, at least off the top of my head.
Wait, so clay
that's
is
what,
before... Steve, have we ever talked about clay?
Probably not much, just because of exactly what Ron's talking about. I feel like because it's a stage that just isn't really represented that much in terms of what's around.
I don't think
probably
they were
have
saved.
it.
Yeah, I mean
okay,
that was like in an oil-based clay, right? And it's crumbly, and there's not much that would have remained. And I don't think the sculptors would have been inclined to keep that.
It's just a starting point for them to really sculpt in the wax.
So we're thinking like fine modeling clay, like Play-Doh, but better. And they would sculpt a rough idea, and then they would make a mold out of that, and then they would pour in wax, and then they would do the fine work on that wax, and then that would be the wax sculpt, and then that would be put into a mold, and then the hard copies would be made from that mold.
Yep, pretty much. And if you look on the archive entry for the Rancor Keeper stuff, I think it's called Clay and Wax Sculptings for Rancor Keeper figure. You'll see the clay leg sitting next to a hard copy leg, and you can see how the rough details later became the more sharp details. So it gives you like the very rough, vague outline of the stuff you want to do, and then that once you make a mold of that and put wax into it, then the wax result, you can really get in there and do the fine detail stuff. Because obviously the clay is easy to model, so you can model it up, whereas the wax isn't really a modeling wax. It's a reductive process. I mean, they can add to it too, but it's mostly they're sculpting it down. So you sort of need a rough shape to get down to your more detailed piece. Right. So I think that's pretty much what the clay what role that served. But I think most figures probably had that. It's just that those generally were not saved, whereas the guys in the model shop in the sculpting department at Kenner really went out of their way to save the sculpts, the finished sculpts. Like those really were there, like a lot of them. But the clay roughs, I don't think that stuff was really saved. I think this was just a random. Like I bought this from the guy who sculpted that figure, and I think that may have been why he had so many different parts he saved, and the rest of the clay pieces aren't around anymore. But that leg, was something that he had, so I was glad to get that.
So this is like one of 2 or 3 examples of a clay sculpt from the vintage line.
I think it's the only one I can think of from the movie line.
Wow.
And then the other one was the animated Chirpa?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
And that was for the alternate sculpt of the Chirpa, Ewok's Chirpa. There may be one I'm forgetting, but that's off the top of my head. That's the only the Rancor leg's the only one I can think of. So that makes it kind of neat. And if you look at the archive entry, you'll see that the wax does not have a torso, right? So that when we found that figure, the torso was missing. So I had it on a hard copy torso. And the funny thing about that is, years later, this is actually maybe 2 to 3 years ago. I guess I should go back. As you guys probably remember, we've talked about this before, is that most of the wax sculpts and whatnot were at Kenner at one point, and then they were in boxes and probably not complete figures. Like the parts were scattered. Right. And at some point when they cleaned out that area, rather than throw a lot of that stuff away, people took it home, right? So a lot of people who were there, mostly the sculptors, ended up with, like one guy would have the head, the other guy would have the legs, and these things had to be re-pieced together as these guys sold things. Well, the Rancor torso never turned up until like 3 years ago. Our friend Fluffy found it was a Max Rebo sculpt, right? So and he sent me and some others a picture, and he's like, "Hey, there's a Max Rebo." And in the picture, it's like, I don't think he realized it first, but instead of the Max Rebo torso, it had the Rancor Keeper torso. So someone put together Max Repo with the Rancor Keeper torso.
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, that's the torso. That's the torso I need. And so Fluffy was like, oh man, because now he didn't have the complete Max Rebo.
Yeah.
Right? But then of course it ended up that someone else had the Max Rebo
That's funny.
torso. So he ended up. So I had to get the Rancor Keeper torso in a trade, and then Fluffy had to get the Max Rebo torso in another trade. So it had to go all around.
So they all lived.
Figure.
They survived.
So before you let go of it, you did complete the Rancor Keeper sculpt.
Yes,
Wow.
yes, I had
awesome.
all of it, except for the weapon.
Right.
And yeah, so that was kind of funny. But it's, it's like 16 or 17 years between the two, or maybe 15 years. But yeah, it's amazing that stuff happens. It's like Max Rebo with a Rancor Keeper torso. I was like, hey, did you notice it has a Rancor Keeper torso? He's like, oh man, I didn't even notice that. Yeah, because it's funny because it kind of fits, but it's just like,
Right. Yeah.
at first you might not automatically notice, and then you're like, well, this looks odd for some reason. Like, wait a second, that's not Max Rebo's torso. Because Max Rebo is also
got nipples.
a fat guy without a shirt on and has like underpants.
Yeah.
The theme going there.
He's at least
Jabba's.
contributing. He's not just sitting down there. Wow. So,
The sculpt does exist in all of
Okay.
its parts. That the hand is broken,
Mm-hmm.
and the you probably saw that the cowl, the way they sculpt that is to take a hard copy torso and arms, because the cowl drapes over the arms, and to sculpt in wax over the head and shoulders, and then they get the cowl sculpt. So that's really cool to see that survive like that as well. So yeah, it's a great piece to have all those pieces survive like that.
Now, do you have any stories?
Even though it's a lame figure.
Do you have any stories from 15 years ago when you first found the rest of the sculpt? Is that from a story you've already told us?
Oh gosh, yeah, that was I don't want to. I always worry about giving up people's personal information, but it was a guy who still worked for Hasbro at the time and actually had a pretty high up position, right? So,
Okay.
And it was a real get, because most of these guys we were buying from didn't have stuff anymore. Like they weren't no longer with the company, so they're
Right.
long gone.
Yeah.
But this guy was still there, and he had like a pretty high up title, and it was a real get to have him say that we could meet with him. And I remember going there. I remember we were late getting there, and it was like a big rush. And I think the first time we met him, he showed us a bunch of things, but we didn't buy anything. It was just kind of like hanging out, and he was telling stories. But he had just like a lot of sculpts. And then maybe the second time we went there, we bought stuff. And I'm pretty sure that's the guy with the Rancor, because I think that's the guy who sculpted it. I'd have to go back and look. I don't have the notes in front of me right now. But anyway, that guy had the Gargan sculpt that's out there. I think he had Logray, which I got from him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had a bunch of good stuff, and he also had a ton of coin sculpts. He had them all in big Tupperware containers. I remember pulling them out, and we started pulling out all these coin sculpts. He must have had like 7 or 8 of those things. But yeah, that was super exciting, like I said, because he was still at the company, and I guess he was getting ready to head out or whatever. But very nice guy, and had some great stories. And one of the stories he told was that he had not much sculpting history in his past, and he just ended up applying for that job as a sculptor. They gave him they just kind of gave him a test to see if he could do it. And they just asked him to sculpt a micro figure, right? So, and he actually still had the original clay rough of that micro figure. It was a figure that was never made. It wasn't like they even intended to produce it. I think it was just purely a test. So he went and sculpted this thing based on some reference, and it was to the scale of a micro 4-up, and he still had the clay. And I think Fluffy probably still has that. That was a great.
What
that was a
was
story
it
I
of?
remember. And then
So he just on
it
spec.
was a Hoth Rebel soldier.
Huh.
Mm.
Wow. So it was
I don't know if that might even be on the archive. Let me see if I can. But yeah, they gave him that as a test. Probably Rudy Vapp was probably the guy I gave it to, because I think he was head of sculpting at the time, the late Rudy Vapp. And I guess they liked his work well enough. They must have liked him. Yeah, it is on the archive. It's called Micro Collection Rough Clay Sculpting.
Oh yeah, look at that. Oh wow, there's a whole write-up here.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so. This is a,
it even has
a much more clear idea of what the clay
the,
sculpts look like.
Yeah, that would have been what a micro one looked like. And again, that one was never carried through to production, as far as I know. I think that was just a test he did, but that is cool. But he saved it all those years, and that was like his test piece for the company.
Wow.
And I think just Rudy Vapp, they were just like, I don't know, Rudy was an interesting guy, so let me see what you can do. He went home and sculpted it, and they hired him.
Wow. Well, that was awesome. So, Steve, I think that's the way to do it. Like, moving forward, when we have these crazy runs, just try to learn something new, which isn't hard.
Yeah.
Considering the fact that I don't learn anything and I forget everything I learn. But learning about the clay sculpts is really useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you tried it like years and years ago, this is 25 years ago, I did a project where I sculpted my own thing out of wax, and that's exactly what I did. And it was even, I think, before I knew the Kenner Sculptor guys. First I sculpted it in like plasticine, then I made a mold, poured it in wax, and then I did extra work on it. And actually, I gave that thing to Yehuda. I gave him the final wax sculpt. He's got it now, because he's probably the only person who would appreciate it. But so that it's very, wax isn't like, you don't model it, right? So if you want to build up a rough form, it's difficult. So you use the clay to build in your rough form, and then make a mold, then pour the wax into that, and then you can detail the wax from there. So it's a lot better than, just trying to take a big block and try to sculpt it down,
Yeah.
Well, you say that, Ron, but there is now a market for Ronorabilia, and people have been buying your old sculpts, and people have been buying your old
customs,
customs, and even your
can't be that much of a market.
Your business cards. I can tell you, I don't understand why people would pay $100 for Dewey Shoemate's underpants, but I do understand why someone would try to buy your old business card with the Sal family email.
Oh God,
that's interesting to me. That's
somebody wants one. Let me know. I'll just put it out there. You can shoemate me all day long, baby. I got
nice.
I got some extras.
Well, definitely put me down for one. I want that.
I wish I'd saved more of those old custom things, but I really didn't. There's a lot of stuff I made that I never saved one for myself. I thought about doing a blog post of just a list of all the things that are out there, but I don't even have photos of a lot of them. So it's like, all right, well, Robin Mattia has a lot of them. I was at his place not too long ago, and he's got a lot of those old custom things that he might have close to a complete collection. I know I sent Steve Sansweet a whole set of all the micro ones at one point. So maybe at Rancho Obi-Wan, and he probably does somewhere. But yeah, that was a fun little thing, just making those things. But there's not many out there, so it's some of them it's 15 or so. So if you really tried to put a set together, it would be pretty tough, if not impossible.
Now, Steve, you wanted to. The Nugget from the archive won't be a sculpt or a hard copy or a rough clay.
No.
I've been getting copyright strikes on the Nugget from the archive song. No, not the Nugget from the archive. That's for $1 of licks. So we can have the Nugget from the archive song. Thankfully, Prince Paul is not suing us.
'Tis a nugget from the archive. 'Tis a nugget.
Oh my God, they're gorgeous.
From the archive.
But what is our Nugget from the archive? Do we really need to waste Ron's time talking about it, Steve?
Yeah, I'll leave that up to Ron, but it is one of my favorite ads from the old vintage era. It's the Palitoy Keep a Rancor Keeper Free flyer from
Oh yeah.
And I remember seeing not just this one, but the other ones that they produced for that kind of era where they were doing their promotions. And it's interesting to me that like the Rancor Keeper, the free Rancor Keeper, was something that was unique to the UK. They didn't do a mail away thing here in the States for him, but he got this great flyer with this really dynamic art where I think we've noticed this in other things where the art, they're still posed with the limitations of the action figures, yet they look very realistic. Mm-hmm. So you have the Rancor Keeper.
Yeah, I was just looking at that right now. It's like some legal guy at Palitoy is like, can't misrepresent the figure, so he can't make his knees bend. It's like the artist is like rolling his eyes, like, oh man.
He's got
a like stepping Rancor.
Yeah, he's totally just straight edge, straight limbed. Kind of, I don't know if he's running away. I'm not sure what he's doing, but he's looking back at the Rancor monster, it looks very much like the weird.
He does get eaten in the commercial.
He does, yeah.
Well, I can tell you what the Rancor Keeper said immediately before this photo was taken. I actually was there for this photo shoot. He had just said, "I'm too sexy for my shirt." He is absolutely... If you know what I mean, he does his little turn on the catwalk. You look at him, and he's like, he turn to the left. Like, he has this look about him where he's giving this little sassy face, this little blue steel over his shoulder.
It is, and you know, the head, his little cowl is kind of sweeping in the wind. Like, that part of it is very catwalk, like, fashion show. Yeah.
And he is too sexy for his shirt.
He really is.
He's not too sexy to carry his dinner plate in his pants. But what is that thing in the front of his pants? What is that?
It looks like he is just like looking back on the Rancor fighting Luke, and he's just like my work is done. He's like my work is done here, and he's trying to escape before someone notices that this heinous act is happening. Like he's fleeing the scene of the crime.
Good.
But I love those Palitoy ads with the art. You know, there's like the Rancor, there's the Emperor, there's a few other ones.
There's a Chewbacca one as well, right?
Strap, yep.
Chewbacca.
That's
a lot
right.
of them. I don't know exactly how many were done as large posters, which is like, I have the Emperor one, which is just a great piece. If anybody has those, good size Palitoy posters for those flyers, like, I'm definitely a buyer, so let me know. But I think those are really cool. The flyers themselves are cool as well too. Oh man, it's probably like 20 something by 30 something.
Wow, that big.
Those.
Okay.
It's like poster size, yeah. I have the Emperor. You've probably seen it at my house, Skye, but you just didn't pay attention or something. Or maybe, I don't know. When's the last time you were here? I can't even remember, but I've had it for a little while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's not many of those around, so I mean, those are really nice store display pieces if you're into store displays or just kind of advertising stuff.
Yeah.
I love the copy on this too.
Yeah, they're very.
You guys read this?
Yeah, free Rancor Keeper with every 6 action figures. Keep a Rancor Keeper free. It's like, good lord, how many times do you have to say free Rancor Keeper? And what does that mean? Keep a Rancor Keeper free. Like, do we think that? Oh, it's like keep. It's like the joke is that keep is repeated.
I think that's what they're going for, and I always kind of read it like keep him free, as in like he's in bondage right now, and we want to keep him free.
Right. Well,
but
maybe he's free now that the Rancor. I mean, he's not there in the Book of Boba Fett, as Ron knows. Boba Fett. I mean, Boba Fett still has to do his thing. Max Rebo still has to play the damn circular organ, and Rancor Keeper is just hanging around in space Hawaii getting a tan.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like, it goes back to this whole thing about everyone needs somebody. But the way the little paragraph below says, even a ferocious Rancor monster needs someone to watch over him and be his friend. So here's your chance to get a Rancor Keeper free. It's a mutual. They needed each other. So I think the sad film that follows this about the Rancor Keeper is something that needs to materialize at some point.
The only character in Star Wars, the old movies, to cry? I guess, does the Ewok cry when his little Ewok friend dies?
We were just discussing that as well, Ron.
Yes, yeah.
He moans, but seeing as they couldn't even blink, I don't think they had the means to make it cry.
I feel like Chewie gets close, Skye. I would say, like especially in Empire Strikes Back, there's some pretty more.
But he doesn't cry.
It's not necessarily weeping the way that the Rancor
He's
Keeper
not the
is.
only crying in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Luke doesn't cry when he sees his father's face for the first time, right?
No,
And he doesn't
well,
cry
maybe
when Yoda dies.
right. I think he does. You don't really see the tears, but Luke does kind of bows over in sadness. I think once he dies, but it's nothing quite like the Rancor Keeper and
He
his
certainly
sob.
doesn't die when he sees both of his parents burned to a crisp.
He just kind of stares off into the distance, and he turns around. And he's like, "I want to go to wherever, Alderaan or whatever the hell he's supposed to go."
Anchorhead, hook me up, spaceman. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's not an exciting Nugget in terms of the toy production process, but it is one of my favorite bits of Kenner advertising, or Palitoy advertising in this case.
Oh,
But
that's a good one, man. No doubt.
Yep. And then for your unloved item, did you just try? Are you just trying to get me cranked up, Steve?
somewhat yes, but I don't always intentionally do that. This time it was semi-intentional, but
no. well, this is obviously so. It's I don't know if you saw this, Ron, but he's featuring the Yupi figure, and the Rancor Yupi. I've never seen the Rancor Yupi. As far as I know, this one is not very common.
It's not one that in terms of when I'm thinking about the Yupi, which we've talked about these before, but they're those little colorful plastic figures that were snack premiums in Colombia. So they made like 35 or so characters, and the Rancor Keeper one, I picked this one because it is just one of the saddest things. This little guy, I don't know. I feel the figure itself, the Kenner one, is sad, but somehow this is more sad to me. I don't know.
Yeah, he's really tiny, and yeah, wow, it's pretty wild because so he is just sitting there and he's blue. I've only ever seen another one. I know James Gallo had one or still has one for sale without his staff. It's also blue. Have you seen this in other colors, Steve?
Not to my memory, no. But yeah, there's just something so strange about it. I mean, so they would take the Kenner figures as just an inspiration to then resculpt in this miniature form. And I think one of the things that happens a lot is the accessories still remain way too big compared to the scale of the little figures. So his staff is just like gigantic in the Yupi form, and his head is a little bit big. His face is still very large and round. It just doesn't quite fit his body. But I don't know. I don't know. I just found this fascinating that they made a Yupi of the Rancor Keeper.
Now, interestingly, I just found while looking around on Facebook, there is a Rancor Keeper page. The Rancor Keeper
like a fan group. Oh,
and there is a guy, Ryan Inken, who has a full rainbow run of Maliki here. He's got blue, pink, red, black, and white.
Wow. Oh, that is amazing.
Crazy. There's a Rancor Keeper Facebook page?
Yes.
I guess nothing surprises.
You should show up there and just be like, I have a couple things. Oh, this is cool. There's like some art on here. This is nice. It's all run by this guy, Ryan Inken. You guys know Ryan
awesome.
Inken?
Why didn't you get him on the show?
I didn't know him.
Ron,
Yeah,
we're only allowed to have one guest a year, and it's always you. Wow.
I just texted you guys a photo.
He's got the Singapore sticker. What the hell, Steve? He's got the Singapore stick.
Well, like the fan club sticker.
Wait a minute.
That goes on a carded figure.
What is this? There's some stuff going on here. No, these are the Australian coin stickers.
Oh, okay. We talked about with the ATSG driver last month.
Yeah, but he's got them on Greedo and B-Wing Pilot and Emperor and a whole bunch of them.
Wow.
A lot of stuff going on this Rancor Keeper page, Ron. So Ron, do you know why Steve might be winding me up with the Yupi thing?
Because you think they're fake.
I don't think they're all fake. I just can't possibly believe that there's this many that came out of nowhere in all these different colors all over the place all at once.
Yeah, it's not a bad gut feeling. I don't know much about that stuff, but you're probably right to err on the side of caution with stuff like that.
And I've bought I've spent $500 on Chewbacca Yupis in the past couple of years, so I am definitely contributing to the problem. But I do think it's worth just mentioning that every once in a while.
I think it's important to. I think it's important to in collecting is to or just in life in general, just weird things that fall outside the pattern of normality, are always things to kind of question, So, all of a sudden, nobody ever hearing about something, and then all of a sudden, there's a ton of them around, and where years prior there was never any is certainly something to wonder about. But I don't know the fact pattern there. It's just, it certainly is an odd situation for sure.
Yeah, and it could just be that Yehuda's article lit a fire under the entire country of Colombia, and all of a sudden everyone was like, "Oh, that's what these little plastic things are."
And a whole drawer of these.
Yeah,
yeah.
Because it was Yehuda's article. Before Yehuda's article, before the archive, Yupis were very rare, and no one ever talked about them. Then Yehuda released his article. I think Tommy Garvey edited it with him. Or took pictures with him. He just has all the Kia malls. And then they exploded everywhere. And another thing Steve is obsessed with is making sure that I spend a lot of time thinking about Dixie Cups. I'm actually, holy cow, I'm drinking from a Dixie Cup right now. It's not a Star Wars one.
It does. It always comes back to these, I feel like, and that is my fault. But I feel like there's still stuff worth talking about with these because the art is just bananas. It's just crazy. So yeah, there is not much with the Rancor Keeper represented, right? So there is his presence on one of the Return of the Jedi Dixie Cups, and he's with other characters, all of which are named. He is not.
There's Lando, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Nikto, and then a picture of. It seems like the Rancor Keeper has the cowl goes around his neck. Is that usually the case?
It almost looks like it's got a little
a choker.
Yeah. Not your typical depiction there, but I just love that. Yeah, he's not named where everyone else is, and I don't know, the Han Solo is very strange. It's just odd rendition of Harrison Ford as Han Solo. I don't know what's going on with this, but
Dixie Cups are a great collectible.
They are.
It's just you could just do a lot of different, a lot of the art's really awesome, and you can just do really well with that stuff, I think.
And I'm now realizing that I think the Rancor Keeper also is probably one of the most kink-friendly Star Wars characters.
Right.
Of course we have all the Ewoks, but beyond that, I'm just saying, there's something about his shirtlessness, his anyways, I'm not going to go into more detail.
He's definitely one for the bears, the bear lovers over there. He falls into that niche. You can totally see it.
Yeah.
Star Wars is for everybody. Everybody's preferences are catered to in the world of Star Wars.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is, I think you're right. It sounds silly, but it's true. The bear community is a whole thing. I'm actually good friends with a guy here who's super into that stuff, and he goes to bear conventions. I don't know really what that means, but he goes to them quite often. And maybe Rancor Keeper will eventually catch on in that way. Sort of in the same way there's a fairly large He-Man sort of gay and crossover with fandom and My Little Pony.
In hindsight, He-Man is sort of it just seems it seems to cater to that whole demographic. So
right.
It's how did we miss it? Or maybe we didn't miss it as children, but it's a little bit like Steve Reeves and like the Hercules, the Sword and Sandals movies, the Italian.
Right. Yeah.
Those ended up being a gay touchstone for like boys who saw that when they were in the 60s and in the 50s. Later on, a lot of those people had like idolized Steve Reeves, and then later they ended up, he was like a fantasy figure for a lot of people. So maybe the Rancor Keeper is that for like the nerd community, right? He's like the nerd, the geek fair crossover.
Yeah.
I'm just staring at this Daisy Cup and just fantasy figures exactly what. Yeah. No, but it's it is just funny that he's paired with Luke in this too. Like it's more he's just behind Luke. Like he's part of the Luke collage in this Dixie Cup. He's not his own man.
he's the nervous guy at the orgy who's like afraid to like talk to anybody. He's just sort of there, and he's maybe been to one before, but he's not totally okay. I'm done.
Okay.
It's a Star Wars podcast, Steve. I don't know why you're bringing this stuff up.
Ow, it's all right. Don't worry about it.
Now, do you remember, Steve, when Ron said if we got to the Market Watch game before 10 o'clock, he'd participate? Let me check my watch right now. Oh, 9:57, Ron, you're back.
We're just gonna get you. We're gonna get you right in there under the wire, Ron.
All right.
Ron may or may not have sent a text that said that. Okay.
Lean and mean. Here we go.
Leaky,
all right,
leaky,
so.
leaky.
I leaky maka. Yeah, it's too bad this wasn't our Christmas episode. Oh, that would have been great. Okay.
We skipped a segment in case you didn't notice.
We did.
No one noticed, Steve.
No one knows.
It used to be when we missed a month, people would say, hey, where's the episode? But hey.
Maybe a couple people did. It's okay. All right, so I've got five Rancor Keeper items for you guys to duke it out over. The first one, it's a carded 77 back Rancor Keeper with the Anakin sticker. It's the bubble is mostly clear. It looks like it's a little dinged up, but it's clearer than most Rancor Keepers. The punch tab is kind of there. It's not graded. I don't know. I can't say anything else. I think you just got to give me a number.
Okay, I have my number written down.
Okay.
Ron, do you have your number written down?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Ron, you go. What do you think?
$60.
$60. Okay. Skye?
I wrote down 80.
Oof. $125.95.
When you left, Ron, you were the Maliki master, but now when I left, I was but a Maliki student, but now I am the Maliki master.
You are.
All right, so Skye's up 1-0 here. All right, number 2. This Rancor Keeper has seen better days. It's a 77 back one, no offers. The bubble is about as yellow or brown as a Kenner action figure bubble could get. The card is in nice shape. It's got this great giant red tag clearance self-service tag on it. Let's see, the going price when this thing was either thrown away or sold was 97 cents, marked down from 268. I think that's all I can say. All right, what do you think? Skye, what do you think on this one? Let's go to you.
Okay, Ron, you have yours locked in. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
I'm saying $35.
35. All right, Ron.
I'm going with 60 again.
Ooh. 40. Skye, you're closer.
Dang.
$40. 10 bids
What
on this beauty.
Malik. Maliki. Meek Mill Maliki.
Oh, the Bears need to get out there and start bidding harder on these things
No
to get
kidding.
the price up there.
$150.
right.
You could have 2 carded Star Wars figures. What do you know?
Yeah. So okay, we got $125.95 for that first one, $40 for this red tag clearance version. All right. Next, we've got the Tri-Logo, which this, I think we mentioned this before you came on, Ron, but for the Tri-Logo art, it really demonstrates just how simple of a photograph they used for the card back. There's no touching up. It's just him standing against a blue background.
I like to imagine the cameraman like talking to him like, okay, now be sexy. Okay, be a beast. Okay, he just doesn't change his face at all the entire time.
Yeah, and the other great thing about the Tri-Logos is because of those giant bubbles they were packed in, everyone I could find when I was looking this up his hat fell off. It's just a bald man in a package with a weird little hat by his feet. So this one, it's not graded, but it looks to be in quite nice shape. So tri-logo, bald Rancor keeper.
Okay, just
against
just
a blue
quickly,
background.
I'm doing a little bit of like thought in my head. Now, first of all, I found okay. I have another addition to our bear collection of toys. You throw in the German mechanic from an Indiana Jones. So if you like a little more of a muscle bear, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, gosh, I haven't thought about that figure in a
You
while.
get how heteronormative our hobby is, right? Like,
and that guy, didn't that same actor also play the thuggy guard in Temple of Doom? And there's an LJN figure, so there's 2 figures of that guy.
Yeah,
there's a whole little subset there. I totally forgot about that.
That's another good bear. This is the thing. Our hobby is so heteronormative. If these were like women and there were different categories for attractive women, you don't think that we would have this? This would be like a joke that everyone has. Whereas, we need to like talk about this, like spread this thought. Like, what are the good bear toys? What are the otter toys? They're all out there. We just okay. All right. What's the question? Okay.
What do you think that a tri-logo version of said
I'm not
character
thinking about
would?
starting a bear focus, just because like people
Right.
like just having an entire room filled with toys of shirtless hairy men. Okay. Jesus, who cares about toys anymore? I'm going to say 100.
100. Okay. Ron, what do you think?
175.
Ooh, Ron's in the game here. 165.50. All right.
Okay, that's still a good price for a good condition tri-logo with his desperately sad photograph of him just standing engulfed in nothingness.
This is grief here. If you could summarize grief with a particular object, it is the tri-logo Rancor Keeper.
Isn't there also kind of an Uncle Fester vibe to Rancor Keeper?
Yeah,
without his
there
hat?
is. There is. I could see that. Okay. All right. Item number 3. Or sorry. Let's see. That was number 3. Number 4. This is. I didn't want to go too Rancor heavy because I figured someday, 25 years from now, we'll do an episode about the Rancor. But this particular auction is a loose, good condition Rancor with a loose, great condition Rancor Keeper. So it's the pair. The figure and the monster.
Is the figure complete?
The figure is complete, yep. And it's in great shape. The Rancor itself looks to be in pretty good shape, too. So, yeah, two loose toys.
Jeez. Well, I don't know, because the loose toys, that's Ron's area. I guess I'll say 100.
100? Okay. What do you think, Ron?
85.
Oof, $95. So Skye,
I won by $5.
Yeah, you were just well. I still say we give Ron the winner take all chance for the last.
Yeah. It's always winner take all.
That's just
the number 5. That's just how it goes.
It's all pointless until you get to the fifth item. All right, so this, how do I describe this? This is an auction that was from Mexico. It is a weird hybrid that someone made of a Lily Letty Rancor Keeper's head and torso with T-Bow's limbs attached to it. Wild custom here that I think that whoever sold this tried to describe it as a legitimate thing, but obviously it's just something that someone threw together years ago. And yeah, so it's a Ewok height Rancor Keeper with T-Bow arms, but that's still that shiny bald head and the bare chest. What do you think this sold? And it sold. So what do you think it sold for?
Jesus Christ! I don't understand
Wild card
what
here.
you're talking about.
It's hard to hard to wrap your head around.
I have my number.
Okay, Ron, do you have a number?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go with you first, Ron. What do you think this monstrosity
55.
sold? 55.
I said
Okay.
I said 33.
Oof. 52-65, Ron.
Well done,
Yes!
Ron. Because you won, that means that you get to participate next time you're on the show. Good job, Ron.
All right. I always shoot myself in the foot with these things. I don't know how it happens.
It also gets us out of the $10,000 we owe you. That was
Yes.
All right. I'm only coming on if we talk about bears again, because that's the only thing that's drawing me back to this conversation here.
Let's build this out. I really want to get this going. I'm trying to think of other places where we can have bears and action figures. The thuggy pull is a great one. German mechanic.
Yeah, that.
Rancor
Yes.
keeper.
I mean, there's a whole professional wrestling series,
King
especially
Kong
in the
Bundy,
80s. There's plenty of
Friar Tuck.
Friar Tuck, Steve.
From Robin Hood.
Does the Gamorrean Guard count as an alien bear? No, it
Yeah,
doesn't.
that's.
No, I don't know.
I don't.
Something out with these new weird Gamorrean guards they have on Boba Fett. Who wants thin Gamorrean guards? Why do we need diversity in body shape of goddamn Gamorrean guards? They're pig guards. I don't want to see a thin pig. Do you like go to a farm and say, I want to see a thin pig?
You should put this in writing to Dave Filoni. I'm sure he'll respond. All right,
good
gentlemen.
job, Ron.
I have to. I have another call I have to make here, but it's awesome as always. I hope to see you both. Really soon.
I hope so.
But,
I hope so too.
Thanks for talking.
All right.
We'll see you down the road.
All right, guys. Thanks.
You, Ron.
Take it easy.
Well, all right, Steve. That was fun.
That was fun, man. That was great. So yeah, I mean this wraps up a season for us, Skye. It wraps up a calendar year and a season.
Really?
So this is the end of our 12th year of doing this. It's our 120th episode, which I'm like, oh wait, no. If you throw in all the blog pods, we were above pace to do one episode a month overall.
Totally.
It evens out. So yeah.
How many? So
17 of those maybe.
Yeah.
15, 17. Yeah, we're getting there, but maybe not quite, but close enough. But yeah, I kind of like that this ends the 77 back season, and it ends the 12th year.
So
I don't know what. Yeah.
So then the 78 and 79, are those both Ewoks? What are those?
They are. We're gonna have a two Ewok season, starting with the 79 backs. I think Lumat's the first one in the Kellerman book. So,
wow.
Yeah, this was I don't know. I feel like I'm a little worried about that one.
About Lumat?
Yeah, no, it'll be good. It'll be all right. But the excitement of a new card back that should be enough. I think we'll let that push us through.
Wow, sweet. Well, this is a good episode. It got a little Gargan Largan, but I think it got Gargan Largan in the right ways. And
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any fantasy baseball to discuss, so.
Yeah, no baseball whatsoever to discuss.
Yeah, probably just. Oh yeah, and the Dodgers didn't win the World Series, right?
Not this time.
Yeah.
No.
Who did? Houston?
No. It was the Braves. Right?
The Braves. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, good for them, I guess. Okay.
Sure.
Well, this ran out of steam. All right, Steve. Well, we'll see you on the other side of the Lumat.
Yes.
And Wampa Wampa.
Wampa. No. Adios.
Early bird set of figures. These action figures are not yet available, but this Star Wars Early Bird certificate package is in stores with its colorful Star Wars picture display stand and certificate.